Hello and welcome to another edition of the Avid Screencast. My name is Christian Förster, and this week we'll start a series on color correction. We'll start by having a look at scopes and setting the basic contrast of an image, so actually not much color today, but we'll lay the groundwork. So first of all, I have created a sequence. This is the image that we want to correct. So go to Tool Set and use the color correction mode, or map that to a keyboard, that's even better. And enter color correction mode. We got our timeline there. Here we have our color correction tools. And there we have the monitors. You'll see the current image, that is the one that we want to alter in the center monitor. On the left one we have the previous image, the one that is before it in the timeline, and on the right one we have the next image. Now if you don't have a hardware scope, waveform monitor or anything like that, I would strongly suggest setting this one to a scope. So what are scopes? How many are there? A lot. So let's start with the most simple one, the Y waveform. This basically shows you the distribution of brightness or luminance, that is what Y stands for, throughout the image. The horizontal axis corresponds to the lines of your image. So everything that is right here on the left part is also on the left of your image. Now the Y-axis shows you the distribution of luminance that occurs in that part of the image. For example, you can see that the brightest part is here in the center. This corresponds directly to those bright spots on her nose and on her forehead. While we have the darkest parts of the image here, which corresponds to this dark shape on the right here, and here, which corresponds to her hair. What you cannot say is that what's in the center of the Y-axis is also in the center of the image in the Y-axis. It doesn't work that way. It shows you the distribution of brightness. Now it's important that you stick to legal values here, and for videos these are 16 for the blacks, that's that line down here, and 235 for the whites. Everything within your image has to stay within these boundaries, otherwise it's not technically correct. So we have a lot of space there, especially in the highlights. The RGB parade monitor is very similar. However, it doesn't show luminance, but the three color components of an image: red, green, and blue. They too have to stay within the legal boundaries, and they're very helpful when color correcting. See that in a later episode. Then there's the vector scope. It shows you the hue as a vector, that means as a direction, and the saturation and brightness of said color as the length of the vector. It resembles the color wheels down here, so red is at the same spot here. So if we change the image to be very red, you'll see that in the vector scope as well. Over here, totally red, and it's very strong, and it looks very evil. It's very handy when you manipulate the color wheels, because you can see exactly what you're doing there. Then there's the YCBCR parade. It shows you the luminance just like the Y waveform right here, but also the color components that are actually delivered in video. CB is basically blue minus the luminance, and CR is red minus the luminance. That is not exactly correct, but good enough for now. The only use I find for this display option is to watch whether these two signals are within the technical limits. I mean, really, $10 to anyone who actually uses this to see anything about the image. It's a very abstract thing, and honestly, $10, no. Disclaimer, joke, I don't actually have $10 to give to this non-existing person. Okay, there's also histograms. And I think, I guess if you're coming from Photoshop, they might be useful. But the waveforms tell you a lot more about the image, so get used to them and forget about histograms. We will not use them. Okay, so let's get started. And for our basic setting of contrast, we'll stick to the waveform of the luminance for now. Now, if you have played around with color correction in Avid, you might know about the Controls tab here within the HSL tab. It gives you the possibility to change the hue of the image. Oh my god, it's Avatar! It's suddenly 3D too, and has a lame story as well. Okay, nothing wrong about you. What I want to talk about is brightness and contrast. Now, everything that I want to say right now is forget about brightness and contrast. Don't use these controls if in any way possible. Because look at what brightness does. We'll crank the brightness up. Look at the waveform. What we've done is taken the luminance of the image and just, pushed it up. The blacks are lighter and the highlights are lighter too. We have not changed the contrast of the image at all, but just made it brighter overall. But we have made the blacks brighter the same amount that we have made the highlights lighter. That is usually not what you want to do. You usually want to leave the blacks down where they are and just increase the highlights, because you want to increase overall contrast most of the time anyway, and you don't do anything of that here. So let's just say, well, we have a contrast slider as well, so let's just crank this up as well. Now, this did a pretty okay job. It cranked up the contrast, but what you lack here is control. You have no idea where it's probably taken the center and, making the light parts lighter and the dark parts darker. But you will find it very hard to move the blacks down to a point where you want them and move the whites to a point where you want them as well. So basically, what I want to tell you is don't use these controls. There are far better controls here, so let's just forget about them. They're not there. Don't ever use them. Don't. Please. Thank you for watching this episode of the Avid Screencast. If you want to learn more about color correction, and I mean a lot more, I strongly recommend Steve Hullfish's book, The Art and Technique of Digital Color Correction. You can buy it from Amazon, and if you use the link in the show notes to do so, I'll get a nice kickback. And this will make me rich, and I'll fly to the Bahamas, I guess, or something. If you like, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast at avidscreencast.com or in the iTunes store. And if you have any comments or suggestions, like future show topics or anything, drop me a line at mail@avidscreencast.com or just comment on the website. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/avidscreencast, and on Facebook, facebook.com/avidscreencast if it loads. If you want to know what kinds of things I do professionally, check out editguy.de. This is where I promote myself. And once again, thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.